Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. As always, I am your host, Rob Z. These are always true testimonies of breakthrough, so you can find breakthrough in your life with whatever you are going through. Today, we have the incredible Malisa Hepner with us on the show. We're going to be talking recovering from trauma today, quieting that noise in your head, building that self-connection, emotional hygiene, imperfection, and authenticity. It's going to be a powerful conversation. And Malisa, I want to start off. You talk about CPTSD. I think we all know what PTSD is. I've never heard CPTSD, so I'm excited just to understand what that is and also how you realized that you were living with CPTSD.
Well, thank you so much for having me. The C in CPTSD stands for complex. So the most succinct way for me to explain that is like a chronic, like ongoing trauma. And so PTSD really deals with maybe a period of time, like a short period of time. Like that's why, veterans were kind of the first for trauma to be studied in, at least like in a way that the general public was hearing about it and the way I heard about it. Because I mean, I didn't hear about PTSD until late 90s, and it was only in veterans. And then as the research really expanded, it uncovered the fact that chronic or complex trauma is like multiple events, a longer period of time, however you would want to understand chronic for yourself. I don't want to get too specific in that part, just because I feel like we have a natural tendency to kind of minimalize and trivialize our experiences, and especially our trauma. So I mean, for myself, it was really like an entire childhood. Like there was just not one day that was peaceful in 18 years time. And so that's where my complex trauma really came from. I can't remember what your second part of that question was.
My second part was, how did you remember, or how did you realize that you were living with it? Was there something, I guess this might be more of a simple question, I guess, but realizing that you're living with CPTSD, I think that the big thing, the reason I'm asking that is, we can, like you said, trivialize our trauma and not realize the scope of how we are, why we are the way that we are. So was there something, a moment or multiple moments that helped you to realize like this is really something I need to handle?
Well, like a lot of trauma survivors, I was internalizing so much. And when you internalize so much, you're very reactive. And that's where we see a lot of this like need for anger management. And I was really a part of that, and very in public freeze or fawn in the middle of a conflict, but then taking it out on the people who were like the closest to me. That was the thing that I carried the most shame about, was how quick I would just snap at somebody I was close to anyway. I mean, I messed up a lot of friendships like that just from, and also then hiding in shame from it and not knowing how to apologize. But I think what really like made me aware that I wasn't just a crazy person and there was an actual internal process happening was somewhere around like 2016. I don't know if you're familiar with the holistic psychologist. I think her real name is Dr. Nicola Pera, I think. She was getting really big on Instagram, and that was really my gateway into understanding complex trauma and or trauma really in general. And she was just putting out little infographics that resonated so deeply with me that I was like, wait a second, I'm not crazy. I'm not just mean, because I was like raised around a narcissistic grandma who really just loved to break my heart with the things she said about what a not good person I was, because I've been reactive my whole life. But I mean, the trauma started in infancy. So like it was something I carried a lot of shame about, and those narratives just compounded it over and over and over. So like to finally see anyone in this universe talking about this in a way that meant like I'm not a bad person and recovery is possible, because I had tried all the things that I knew very little. I had no coping skills whatsoever. And so the information that I had, even from education, wasn't cutting it. And so I thought I'm just a bad person. Like this is just who I am. and really just identified really negatively. And so getting that information was kind of the gateway to like, okay, I know that there's an internal process that I need to work with instead of just assuming I'm a bad person.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this. There's something I want to, you made me think of something recently that's happened to me that gave me some awareness, and I want to dive into that here in a second. Before we go any further, though, I want to welcome everybody to the show, the Unstuck Movement. I created this platform, this movement, because we all get stuck at different places in our lives, and breakthrough is everything. I love to have true testimonies of breakthrough to prove to you, wherever you're at in life, personally, professionally, that it's possible to find breakthrough. It is possible. It's necessary that you get unstuck. We have to keep growing, have that growth mindset, not that fixed mindset. And so that's why this platform exists. We're sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Make sure you check out connectedleadersacademy.com. Over 500 heart-centered entrepreneurs all over the world helping each other grow. And also the Pro Podcaster Academy. So if you're somebody who has been wanting to launch a podcast for a long time, all the nuts and bolts, it just seems way too complicated for you to do it. I'd love to help you figure out, number one, how to become the go-to authority in your industry. How do you become that go-to expert? How do you create a lasting impact on people's lives and also create incredible personal and professional connections through your platform? I want to help you launch that podcast. If you already have one, how do you streamline it, make it easier to execute? And also, how do you monetize it and make it a real functional revenue generating part of your business? You can join the Pro Podcaster Academy at robzwentz.com. Today with us is Malisa Hepner, a therapist, podcast host, and speaker who helps people move beyond trauma, overthinking, and perfectionism. Through her lived experience and professional expertise, she equips others with tools to live more grounded, compassionate, and joyful lives. So I wanted to share, Malisa, just recently, my wife pointed out to me that sometimes I'll have like these, what seem like way over the top reactions to things that don't necessarily warrant an over the top reaction. Usually it's in anger and some sort of like outburst that it seems out of place with the thing that's happening. And we were talking about this, and I'll be honest with you, it like something clicked for me. It was like nobody had ever seen me like that before. Like, I'm sure people have seen me do this, but if you weren't close to me, you probably would never see it. And her awareness, because she's a counselor herself, her awareness of like, I think there's something going on like in your past that's kind of, you're kind of like stuck in something here that is causing you to have these like unnecessarily big reactions. So instead of her taking it personally, she turned it around and was like, let's figure this out. Let's work through this. And I was like, wow, it brought tears to my eyes, because I was like, nobody ever saw that before. They never pointed it out. And so now I'm on the path of, I've been in therapy in the past for other things, but this is like a whole new avenue of like, okay, you're right. There's something here, some sort of block, some sort of trigger that I need to work through. And whenever you said earlier, when we first started there, when you said about you were always, getting angry about something when you were younger, right? And it was like these big outbursts, and you'd blow up on people, right? Now, like when you got older, you'd blow up on people. It made me think, yeah, there's something going on that's causing that to happen. I just wanted to share that because I felt like that was, to me, like, yeah, you're kind of confirming this new onion layer that I'm peeling off of myself.
Yeah.
I just want to dive into that for you. When this started to become a reality and you're like, okay, there's some things I got to work through. What was the process for you in going through, number one, the awareness, and then the healing process? I know that's a big question, but kind of in the beginning,
it's really not for me, because I had kind of a catalytic event where, so I gained this knowledge, the entryway into trauma in 2017, 16, 17. I spent the next like 6 years or so attempting to regulate my nervous system, because that's the only information I was really getting, right? But I had no idea how to do that. And I, like everybody else, was relying on this finite amount of self-control and discipline that we are given in any given 24-hour period. So it wasn't going well. Not a lot was changing. Okay. Like, I was becoming more introspective, but that almost was worse, because I'm very good at self-analysis. Even if I'm doing it incorrectly, I can stay in my head all day over analyzing stuff.
Same here.
Yeah. So that's part of the problem. Overanalyzing creates tension. When you are tense, you are agitated. And when you are agitated, anything external of you is a threat to your safety. So what happened is I reached the pinnacle of a mental health crisis in October of 23, like wanted to die, was making a plan. I was not well. And then because I, for lots of reasons, set a date that was further off in the future, I was like, well, if we're going to make it to that date, like something's got to give. So like at first I was just kind of moving little pieces. Like I'm trying to focus on my sleep. I'm focusing on water, like you really do have to tend to your physical needs first. The hierarchy of needs is there for a reason. So I was trying to do that. Trying to minimize my stress, which wasn't going well either. So I kind of just started in like creativity that I didn't really access before. I wasn't great at what I was doing, but it would at least get me into a flow state. Quit the job that was being very toxic for my mental health, gave up some friends that were toxic for my mental health, and then started my podcast. It was truly my podcast that saved me because the guests that I've had on, but the life-changing, life-altering, nothing's ever been the same since information that I got that really just put me on this path is a lady named Jenny Kempton was on my show. She works for a guy named Troy Love in Arizona. He has a counseling agency. She's one of his therapists. He developed a method called the Finding Peace Method. He wrote a book called the Finding Peace Workbook. The information that saved me was a couple of things. One, he breaks shame down into different archetypes. The crux of my issues was that I had these narratives that I thought were just me using negative self-talk that were just happening all the time. And I felt like it was different parts of my personality screaming at each other. But the way he breaks it.
Can you kind of explain that a little bit? Like the different archetypes?
Yeah. So there's this archetype that the easiest one is the judge, because we all do this. Like, you know better. You shouldn't have done that. So that would come in. And then the royal, who it blames everyone external of you so that we don't have to feel the shame. It protects you from that. So my judge would come in and be like, Melissa, you knew better. Because it was always just like I'm screaming at my kid or my spouse or whatever. You know better. And then the royal's like, yeah, but if they hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have done that. And then here comes the judge like, yeah, but, and then there's the martyr. That one's easy. It's like, well, I have to, or no one else will do it. And there is the impotent one, which is just that really deep, dark, depressing, hopeless guy who's like, I don't know why you're even trying. It's never going to get better. And then one that I used a lot, and this is really our shadow of shame that enables like addictive behaviors, dopamine seeking, self-sabotage. It's called the rebel. So the rebel is actually what I used the most to absolutely lose my ever-loving mind on people, because it was the only way to get the things inside of my head to shut up. So the royal and the judge are fighting with each other. And then my rebel would come in and be like, shut up. And then outwardly, I'm like, F you, the whole gamut of cussing at whoever's in front of me. And so understanding that helped me to unravel what the key narratives that are behind those really were, which is like, I'm too much and not enough. I have the weight of the world on my shoulders to help, like with nobody to help me carry it. Like I have all of this, that I am alone in my suffering, in my struggle. And at my core, I uncovered the fact that I really did feel like a fundamental F up, but also fundamentally unlovable. And as I started to unravel those, I could actually hear the exact like voice of the royal and what it was saying, and the judge and what it was saying. I thought, because I have schizophrenia in my family, I truly thought I was going through psychosis before I got this information, because it had gotten that loud. It was just a very loud place to be. And what this book does is it teaches you how to externalize all those narratives and give it a character, give it a personality, whatever, so that you can understand this isn't your self-talk. This is your
Right.
programming that you received in childhood. And then it also broke down attachment wounding a lot better, to where I got to where I understood what was being triggered when I was triggered. So it's just those basic attachment wounds: abandonment, rejection, neglect, betrayal, abuse. But it helped me understand so much, because something that I lived in 24/7 was betrayal and neglect. Because anytime something happened, and I realized it really was like me creating all these expectations, because I feel like we love in the way that we want to be loved, and we're not communicating any of that. And when we do that, we are creating a social contract full of expectations between you and whoever else you are people pleasing with or betraying yourself for. And that contract, in my mind, we signed that in blood. You made a promise, and you better follow through. So when the expectation's not met, I'm betrayed. And I kind of, this is where victim consciousness really comes in, where you start to understand, like, I have created a life of victimhood. Because there's a big difference between saying, I feel betrayed, and you betrayed me. Like, it's okay if I feel betrayed. I have this huge betrayal wound from parents who were incredibly inconsistent. They were addicts. They both died. I mean, they abandoned me. There was all kinds of stuff there. I'm allowed to be triggered and to experience that trigger, but I'm not allowed to put that blame on someone else. And so those were really the two big pieces that changed everything for me. Of course, I couldn't regulate before. I didn't know what was causing the dysregulation. Now I do. So I know exactly what's coming up, and I know what to do with that.
I really like you said you were allowed to feel triggered, because man, that word's just it's such a buzzword. It's been for years now in our culture, right? And triggered, we look at that as like, I'm triggered, so something has to happen because I'm triggered. That has to happen externally.
Yes.
Right? The thing that triggered me externally, something has to happen to it because I'm triggered. And I love what you're saying is like, you're allowed to feel triggered. Like the stuff that happened in the past. And this is so good, because I've thought for years, like, well, this stuff's going to stop eventually. These, like you said about the royal and the different archetypes, when you were naming them, like, oh yeah, that's what you do in your head. You get angry, and then I blame externally, and then I feel some shame and blaming. So I turn the blame back onto me. And it's just like this, like topsy-turvy, pointless
perpetual cycle, right?
That agitates me. And then I'm agitated.
Yes.
So that's really good.
When you're agitated again, everything external of you is a threat to your safety.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I have to go like retreat, like either working out always works well for me, is like, it's like the mindset shift, something that just like breaks that pattern. But I know like this can't be the case all the time. There has to be a way to deal with it. So you just saying that and being triggered, because I would think like, okay, I'm getting upset about something. This eventually will not happen anymore, but that's not necessarily true. These triggers might always, they could go away at some point, but they might always pop up, but I don't have to react to them. So
right. I would say they will happen less frequently, but they will always be there. Right.
Because what you feed grows. So if you feed, if you get triggered and you feed it, it's going to grow. But if you don't feed it, it's not going to grow. So so going back to that statement, I'm allowed to feel triggered. What happens now that didn't happen before when you still feel triggered?
So understanding that I was overthinking, overanalyzing, being up here. The word embodied never made sense to me before, but the thing that happens through all this trauma or just experiences in general, like even if you're a person who doesn't recognize any traumatic event in your childhood, nobody, and I mean nobody in Gen X or older, was taught how to experience feelings. We were told to rub some dirt on it and walk it off. We were told to quit crying, or we were given something to cry about. Blah, blah, blah. All the little euphemisms that our parents said. We can hold space for the fact that they did the best they could, while also understanding that we were not taught to walk through emotional developmental milestones, and neither were they. They didn't have the information. So I'm not here to like shame or blame anyone, but it is what it is. And so what we're used to doing is hopping right up here to try to think through a problem. Life is meant to be experienced, not thought about. And so when these things come up, I had to learn, I didn't even realize how much I lived in my head, fighting with someone over something I wish I had said, or remorse over something I did say,
Mm-hmm.
just nonstop repeating, repeating, repeating. And I had to learn how to get out of my head. And I say into my heart, into your body, experience the feelings. So at first I was like, well, I don't even recognize when I'm overthinking because that's my constant state, right? So I had to start cluing in physically. And I would like, oh, if my neck, shoulders, back are tense, I'm in my head. Like that's my go-to. Always, always, I know if I'm tense, I'm in my head about something. And I'm not saying that never happens still, but it is much less frequently.
Mm-hmm.
But what I had to do at first, none of the traditional grounding methods were working for me because I could overthink any of that. Like if I'm having to sit and look at for 5 things I can point out, that didn't work for me because two sides of my brain were at war with each other, like always. So what I started with was because I noticed overthinking happened more in the car because I'm quiet and I don't have anyone to talk to or whatever. And so I was driving one day and I was like, oh, crap, my back hurts really bad. That means I'm overthinking. What was I overthinking about? Oh, okay. And then I was like, oh, yeah, now I'm mad again. And so I started just rapid fire naming things that I could see in front of me, like the color of the car in front of me, the color of the license plate, what the license plate said. Only took about 3 or 4 things before I was now not thinking. I was present in the moment. And then I said, okay, now we know, like out of our head into our heart. And so I was like, what was I thinking about? What was the feeling? Because I know which wound to attach it to. And I was like, oh, rejected. Okay, let's feel it. And I was like, and it was the first time I remember like it. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze, like, Whoopi Goldberg back in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
It felt like that. It felt like entering my body for the first time. Like and that's the visual that I have too, is like when I'm in my head, I'm jumping out of my body. And when I'm in my heart, I'm back in and I'm embodied. And I could actually feel. And if you're not feeding your feelings with thoughts, they move right through you in about 90 seconds. But
Right.
I just had to learn how not to. But you have to get your brain still. So like I said, the rapid fire naming stuff in front of me, that really is still a tool I use. If I'm having trouble, I go straight to that because it's a way to get very centered and present. And then I just feel the feeling. And I didn't used to know what that meant. And I had to start with like, where in my, do I feel any sensations in my body? Because I did not know how to feel. I truly didn't. And there's lots and lots of resources out there for experiencing feelings. So I mean, that's like a whole topic on itself, but that's what I had to do. And then now that's the difference. When I feel all of that coming up, I have to check in with my physical needs. Did I drink water? Do I need a nap? I heard someone say, like, if you hate everyone, then you need to eat. If you feel like everybody hates you, you need to sleep. If you feel like both, first take a shower and then take a snack and then a nap, because like there's a biophysical response to things.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I do is I meet my physical needs, and then I'm just making sure, like, is this even worth the thought? Like maybe I do just need to distract myself because I have hormones. It can make me overthink at any time. Maybe it's nothing there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah, 100%. No, it's really good because I've noticed this recently that I have a 1-year-old. And so I have a lot of practice of like putting him to sleep. There's a lot of time of just getting irritated.
Oh yeah.
I rock him for a half an hour, get up to put him down. He wakes up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to start the process over again. So what I started doing, that's kind of going with what you were saying about like naming the things in front of you. I just start counting. I start at 500 and I just count backwards in my head, and all the stuff, it tries to fight its way through. This is probably just in the past couple of months that I figured this out, and it's been like really helpful. I use it throughout the day now if I get agitated or whatever. But it's like, yeah, we don't, trying to figure out your thoughts with more thoughts is a losing battle. At least I found for myself. It's like I just need to, the counting backwards for me is like I'm present on counting, and I can do stuff while I'm counting. I can still do things, and those thoughts just like dissipate. They just like they just go away, right? And like you said, then they can process. So I can process them. They go away. They like go through me. I'm not repressing them. I'm
Right.
just like getting away from them, right? I'm not feeding them.
Yeah,
And
because
so,
there's a difference between like the frustration you feel in a normal everyday thing and being triggered like in this big way. I mean, we're going to
yeah.
get frustrated. And there's
Well,
a
it's
similarity there
snowballs.
too
It's the
in
snowball
the
effect.
safety. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Some of it, your shame can be triggered when you can't put your kid to sleep. It really can, because
Well, because
should
what
I be
happens
able to
is,
do this? Or should I, it makes you question if you're not a person who's really good at trusting yourself.
well,
Should
it
I
makes me get
listen to the
angry.
sleep trainers?
So I'll
Yeah.
get angry, and then I'll start getting upset at myself for being angry.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually the process. For every, I could relate to most things. The process usually is I get angry at myself because I'm acting a way that I don't want to act, and that triggers the shame and all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Whereas like the anger is coming from somewhere, and it's really just like your container for frustrations not
Yeah.
big enough, and that's something you can work on to get it to expand. Like literally, when I first started my podcast, I cried all the time. Like the earliest episodes, my voice is hoarse and raw from crying so badly over tech issues because I had no capacity for frustration. And I remember one day, because I'm super into astrology and all of that. And I remember one day I was sitting there and I was wailing again over a tech issue. And I was like, all right, I get it. This isn't going to stop until I quit acting like it's the end of the world every time something small happens. So I literally just like decided right then and there, like, I'm not going to care.
Mm-hmm.
And I just worked with it. Like, it was like, okay, so if I'm a person who doesn't care, what's the next step? I just work through the problem without making it bigger. So it's
Yeah.
the same thing. Like there doesn't have to be something super fundamentally wrong because your container for frustration isn't big. You know, it's just not something, it's not a muscle you have really flexed, because kids can bring this shit out in you more than anything else. It really shows you your wounding when you're raising your own children. But, you know, if you can make decisions like, okay, I'm going to practice this skill of staying chill in this moment. And that's something even now I'm really working on with my 11-year-old. She's the youngest and she's gotten the worst version of me. But I just recognize like, oh, I have to create that safety within myself to stay chill when she's having her big feelings.
Yes, that's very true, because you are the adult. You're the one in charge here. So things kind of hinge on how you react to things. I want to pause. We got to pause for the sponsor real quick. When we come back, though, I'm curious with the rest of this time we have together. I want to find out, like, so how has this shift in you shifted the traumas in your past? And because I'm sure you still show up, people in your life still like are who have given you these traumas are still there. How do you relate differently to them now? How do you relate to old situations now than you did when things were really going wrong? I'm just curious, that journey. We'll talk about that in 1 minute. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
Malisa, I'm loving this conversation. It's really important to have these conversations to minimize these things. Not saying that the things that happened to you in the past are minimal, but to minimize the grandiosity sometimes of how we feel and how we have to make things. So the trying to get through this stuff, the things that triggered you in the past are the things that are going to trigger you now. How do those past things that cause you trauma, how do you show up differently for them now? How has that changed how you react to the things that, you know, used to really make you go crazy?
Yeah.
I mean that as far as like your personal relationships with people and things like that.
Yeah. So, okay. So most of the people I grew up with are dead now. So there's
Oh,
that.
okay.
Neither
Well,
of
that
my
makes it
parents made
easier.
it to 40. Yeah, I mean it really does. Like truly. My dad died when I was 15. My mom died when I was 22. The grandma who raised me died 10 years ago. Most of my aunts and uncles are gone, but even before I kind of just decided to not be around them. For me, even the people who are still alive, I choose separation because there's no relationship that really can happen because nothing about them has changed. But what has really changed is like with my husband, I had such a hard time viewing anything. I was going to say from his perspective, I'm pretty good at seeing things from other people's perspective. Unfortunately, with that neglect wound, that's the one that really makes us feel like we have no one to help us and we're all alone on an island. That was so loud between that and betrayal. I really had a hard time understanding that like his stress was just as valid as mine. And so again, the victimization of myself has really decreased. But I would say ultimately what's really helped me quiet all of that noise and be a more regulated person is the pressure to be perfect has eliminated itself. That's really where the work comes in, is I understand that I'm not going to be perfect. Like I really thought in those early days, I mean, before I even got the information about the shadows of shame and whatever, I was doing a lot of future self journaling via the holistic psychologist. She, really recommends that. And I do too. I think it's great. But I kept visualizing myself becoming this perpetually unbothered person, like a super nirvana, Buddha, enlightened human, like I was some monk. And the reason the monks are so chill is because they don't have stress. Like they've decided the certain life, and I would be stressed in that life, but they like it or whatever. But it was not until like I was doing this, I'm, into the astrology woo stuff. So I was doing an identity audit, which people do even without astrology, but I do it like around new moons. And I was writing down kind of who I was and who I wanted to be. And I was like, well, why am I trying so hard to become this Zen person? Because I was learning that I really liked this fire in me. I'm a pretty fiery person, and I was just kind of learning how to hold it. Like I didn't want to extinguish it. I felt for the first time in my life I knew what to do with it. And because I was becoming a person who wasn't afraid to advocate for myself. I've always been a pretty good advocate for other people, but like to stand in my own authority, and it felt really good. Even if it was not always in the nicest way, I was at least not people pleasing anymore. And I was like, wait, those two things don't really go together. And it was in that moment that I realized you are already all the things you're trying to become. You got some stuff to still like unbecome a little bit, but like you don't need to change every last thing about yourself to be healed or to reach some destination. And that really led me to like a cycle of understanding that I'm still going to be messy. I'm still going to like sometimes yell, still going to cuss at my kids sometimes. Like I'm still going to be an imperfect person. But what I do with that is what matters. So working on not shaming myself when I make a mistake, truly cultivating a self-love and compassion for me and an unconditional positive regard. Because as you work on those things within yourself, you can then extend that to the people around you. And so I started to kind of see like, how can I see the me and them and the them and me? And the more I love myself, the more I can extend that to others. And every time I'm upset at someone, I just ask myself, how do I do that thing too? And when I figure that out, it makes it so much easier because I know what my motivations are and my intentions. They're not bad. there's some self-protection, there's, some self-sabotage, there's some things like that, but that's not intentional. And my intent is never to harm others. And so I just kind of work with the assumption that that's not their intent either. There are people who are very toxic, and you don't need to waste your time or energy on trying to cultivate a relationship. But the people that I've chosen to be in my life are good people. They don't always see their own shadows, and it's not always my job to point them out, but I can love them because I love me.
Great way of explaining that. That is so true. Man, everybody has their thing. Just because your thing doesn't look like my thing doesn't mean that your thing's not as big to you as my thing is to me, right? It's like, it's really, really true. And the more we give the word I always use is grace. The more grace we give ourselves, the more we can give to other people. If I can cut myself some slack, I can cut other people slack. It becomes so much easier.
Yeah, because that's what I realized, is that like I was holding other people to this cross of perfection because that's what I was holding myself to. So that's where that expectation piece really changed for me too, is because I was like, well, if I'm going to be okay with me not being perfect, I kind of got to be okay with them not being perfect.
Well, but you being okay with you not being perfect automatically makes you okay with other people not being perfect. It like just happens that way naturally. Anybody who's being super hard on somebody else, it's because they're so hard on themselves.
Yes. And perfectionism is sneaky for me. I find new ways all the time. And sometimes it's a podcast guest that will point it out, like, well, but that's okay that wasn't perfect. And I'm like, I was expecting that to be perfect, wasn't I? It still happens every day.
Yeah. It's like you said, it's the more aware we can become of what's happening. This is why we need good people in our life. That's why I always go back to the sum total of the 5 people closest to you, because like when you have really good people around you, they, in a healthy way, highlight these things to you. Just going back to the beginning, my wife highlighting that to me. Now in the past, she has highlighted that in ways where she's gotten offended, and she probably still will in the future, right? We all, depending on what place we're at a point in time, we react to things differently. But without her in my life pointing that out, my own awareness, I don't know if I ever would have seen it. I mean, I'm 42. I don't know. Maybe at 52, 62, would I have finally seen what was happening? But she could see outside of me to be like, hey, I think this might be what's happening. And so that's that's why it's so hard to change when you have the wrong people around you. And that's sometimes not easier said than done, but we have a choice, especially if you're over the age of 18 and you're out on your own. You can choose. I'm not going to say the journey is easy, but it's definitely necessary, right? This whole journey it's not easy, but it is necessary to go through.
Yeah, and so you know what? It's a lot easier than all the things that we do to ourselves to try to cope,
Yeah. No doubt about that. So I want to encourage people to check you out. Your website, empoweredwithmelisahepner.org, but also your link tree. It's in the show notes. I'll put it up on here too. How would you like people to connect with you? Just talk to the people out there. How can they reach out? What would you like to do?
I am super active on Instagram. So like following me and sending a DM is super easy. I'm really responsive there. My link tree is also there. So if it's, I think my Instagram is connected to my link tree too. I try to keep everything on the link tree really current so that it is easy to kind of get to the resources I'm creating. But yeah, I like Instagram. It seems to be the format that works best for me right now. So connecting with me there is great. And my link tree has all of the resources that I'm offering.
Very cool. And I want to thank you for your time. This is really good information. And I just love just the process, right? I love practical information. Like practically, this is how I've done this thing and the changes that I've seen. So I love that you gave us really practical advice. Let's say you and I never talk again. Somebody watching or listening, you never hear from them. You never have a chance to connect with them again. What lasting message would you want to leave with them?
Honestly, I think I would just re-highlight what I said was such an epiphany for me, which is you don't have to change every last thing about yourself to be a healthier person or to be worthy of love and belonging. Like you're already that, and you are worthy and valuable just because you exist. And it's just really important to build that love and compassion for yourself.
That's great advice. Thank you for your time and the work you've done, Melissa. Another true testimony of breakthrough. Until next time, this has been the Unstuck Movement.